Hi everyone, I am Delusion Dispeller. I'm going to talk to you some more about that one insidious addiction known as people addiction. um, Today we're going to be talking about something a little different. It is the security blanket. What do we mean by that? Well, when you're a baby, you have that little blanket that you hold on to. Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe you had a stuffed animal or whatever. They call that a security blanket because it brings you security and comfort and peace and makes you feel like all is well with the world. So, we're going to talk about how people do that today. I'm going to be reading some things, and some of it I'm just going to talk about. So Eileen told me, this is a client, not me, told the person of this book. By the way, this book is How to Break Your Addictions to a Person by Howard M. Halpern. Copyright 1995. You are my security blanket. Eileen told me, since Peter and I broke up, I get these horrible anxiety attacks. Sometimes I wake up terrified. At other times, the fear hits me suddenly, like when I leave the office to go out for lunch or when I go shopping. It's as if the whole world has become unsafe. There's a kind of nameless danger hovering just out of sight. With Peter, even when things were at their worst, I never felt anything like this. His being in my life made me feel safe. He was my security blanket. Her security blanket. The very use of the term points to the childhood origins of one of Eileen's most urgent needs in that relationship. It is the very young child in Eileen who is feeling, in my oneness with Mother, I am protected. I'm united with her power. I have nothing to fear. The world is safe and friendly. But for Eileen or for you, if Mother went out of the room and turned out the light, then monsters or things that go bump in the night could emerge. Or if you lost her in a crowded department store, the world was suddenly filled with unfriendly or indifferent strangers. If you have transferred that early situation to the present, then you can feel as overwhelmed by terror as if you're still that frail and shaky toddler, and the person you have been attached to is serving as your protecting parent. I've heard others besides Eileen call the person they're close to their security blanket. And I've heard people in the throes of a shakeup in a basic relationship talk of losing their harbor, their haven, their anchor, their defender, and the rock on which they stand. Now, even though these are inappropriate ways to attach to people, there are appropriate and genuine mutual protections and caretaking in relationships. The other person might give you that support that builds your self confidence, and in a shared life, you will probably avoid many anxiety provoking situations by virtue of the fact that most primary relationships, even very open ones, are to some degree insular, kind of protecting, insulating, and provide a structure that limits individual risk taking. So you won't feel like you're out there on your own, kind of without a life jacket, so to speak, because there's somebody there that's kind of encouraging you, bolstering you, picking you up when you fall down. But when you feel like it's time to end the relationship and your anxiety starts going sky high when you think about that relationship ending, then it's probably going to be a leftover from childhood that might be holding and causing you to hang on to that thing that you really need to let go of. So, we are going to talk about that today. Eileen was in a relationship that was not healthy. And when it ended, because she was the type of person that normally was very chatty, she became very withdrawn. She was very free and adventurous when she was with her significant other, but when he left, she was shy and afraid. And everything in her caused her to kind of shut down. So she needed to figure out why. Why is this happening? She remembered a situation with her mom where she was upset and I guess scared of like other relatives or something. So, as children sometimes do, Eileen ran to hide behind mommy's skirt, behind her leg. And instead of mommy comforting her, she shoved her back away and said, "You need to go kiss all the relatives and friends goodbye and stop being such a baby." And at that point, Eileen realized that she couldn't rely on her safety blanket, her security blanket, because it wasn't going to be there. It was going to thrust her out into an uncomfortable situation. And that feeling stayed with Eileen the rest of her life. until she realized what the problem was. She also had a dad that was in the military. He would come home and he'd play with her. He'd toss her up in the air and catch her and just have all kinds of fun with her. But then all of a sudden, after a few days of being home from the military, he would treat her as if she was a nuisance, a bother, and kind of just push her away again. And when she tried to get back to his attention, he would just get angry with her. And she would just kind of pull away and go play with her brothers if they'd let her. And she just remembers feeling very anxious and insecure, unwanted, maybe unloved. And then her father would leave again. It was this constant pattern of kind of a love bombing thing, throwing up and playing with her and having a good time and then pushing her away and then finally departing. He created this thing in her, this anxiety, fear of if she ends something, even if it's unhealthy and not good, it'll terrify her to the point where she becomes debilitated. This led Eileen to question why she repeated this self-defeating pattern of hanging on to people that were unhealthy and attaching to people that couldn't meet her needs. And this led her to the next important insight. Her understanding she was hooked into an old task, a task left over from that attachment hunger and early childhood level. That unresolved task was to make her unresponsive parents more responsive. So she was trying to get this unmet need met from every other relationship. I totally can relate to that. I really can. She picked men who treated her badly, and then she would try to change them. She was a fixer. Again, I can relate. But because she finally recognized this pattern as one she kept repeating, her area of relationships began to change. Now, people have asked me, Dee Dee, don't you tend to pick the same types of guys over and over? Haven't you learned your lesson? Yes, I do tend to pick the same type of guys over and over. Yes, I have learned my lesson. Unfortunately, I still don't have that need met from my own mother. I still get that feeling of being pushed away because my mother doesn't approve of me. So possibly that's why I keep latching on to other people that are like that. In this case, with my current husband, however, he knows he has issues and he is working on them. That's the difference. If the guy's working on the issue or the lady, then there's more of a chance that relationship will work out and more of an idea of you being able to stay with them and work through things. But if there's somebody that's just going to keep on hurting you and it's a hurtful relationship, then yes, it's time to end it. Let's talk about the fear of ending the relationship. Because of this insecurity of not having that security blanket be welcoming and warming to her, Eileen continued to perpetuate the pattern of hooking up with unsafe others. Where does it come from? If you think about it, it's based in that childhood feeling of being too small, too helpless, unable to take care of yourself, not able to deal with the demands of life and danger, and that even though that was an accurate perception back then, now that you are an adult, you now have to instill that in yourself and draw that out of yourself. And if you didn't have parents that were good at helping you develop that confidence to stand on your own with your own abilities, it's going to be really hard now to do it as an adult. You're going to have to reorient yourself to discovering that now you are quite capable of coping in your life on your own independently. But you can't do it if you keep on depending on someone that keeps that pattern up that you had with that unhealthy, unstable parent. We have to talk about how to go about finding out where this attachment hunger thing came from and why it hasn't stopped. That's the idea. So we need to find out in your relationships some answers to some questions. And there's actually a chapter in this book. It's chapter 15. I may or may not go over that again, but I'm going to talk to you about it a little bit now. So you're going to be looking for similar traits in all of the people that you found most appealing. I literally sat down at one point with a notebook and made a list of all the guys I had been dating or had dated in the past or were married to. And I had columns and I checked off. I looked in each column to see where the similarities were. And it was really uncanny how similar these guys were. Now, Matthew, on the other hand, even though he has some of those similarities, he's got some real redeeming traits, or I wouldn't have stayed with him, trust me, because I don't stay with people that are not unredeemable. All right, so if you look at the main traits of a personality and character that you had these important love relationships with, let's look at the similarities in the traits. So, what about the patterns of interaction, how they interacted with you, how they treated you? Who was more often the one in control? Who determined what you were going to do when you went on dates or spent time together? Who seemed like they were more committed to the relationship? What needs of yours were fulfilled and what were disappointed? How did these relationships end? What feelings did you have when they ended? Are the patterns of these past relationships similar to the attachment you have now that you feel you need to end? And if they are, then it seems that a self-defeating pattern is present and is being repeated in your current relationship. So let's talk about chapter 15 a minute. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this is where the important questions are that I actually had to answer for myself and that you need to answer for yourself if you're contemplating leaving a relationship. All right, so you're going to start what they call a relationship log, basically. And it's these questions that you're going to be answering. So make yourself a relationship log with these columns. First column, exactly how did the relationship start? Who was the initiator and who was the pursuer? In my case, my relationship started when I discovered my husband, at the time was not my husband, through a chat line on the phone. And who was the initiator? Pretty much me. I mean, he contacted me, told me about his whole past and everything he was going through, said, hey, if you don't want to be friends, I'll understand, but please, I just want to know, after hearing my story, are you willing to give me a chance? And I did, because I'm a fixer, and that's what fixers do. We find somebody to fix, and we attach to them. The pursuer, definitely me. I was trying to pull him out of that shell to get him to talk to me, to find out more about him, to find out if I could help him. That's what I did. I'm just being for real with you, y'all. I'm not saying that's a healthy relationship. I'm not saying that's the healthiest way to start, initiate, or pursue a relationship, but that's legitimately how it started and got done. Number 2, was one of you more dominant? Definitely me. Who seemed to control when and where you would get together, how you would spend your time? Actually, believe it or not, pretty much Matthew from the beginning was the one that determined where we spent our time and what we did together, because he was very shy and very nervous about going in public places and things like that. So I let him kind of decide that, and I went along with it, even though I was the one that was driving, because he didn't drive and still doesn't. Number 3, what was the emotional tone of the relationship for you? Loving, angry, contented, depressed, anxious, boring, insecure, romantic, desperate, or what? Okay. The emotional tone of our relationship in the beginning was frustrating for me. Very frustrating, because here was this guy sitting there in Indian style in front of a game system, playing with a gaming switch, staring at the screen and pretty much ignoring me. I was frustrated. I kept trying to get him to talk to me, engage with me. It was very frustrating. I was angry, I'm sure. And yet there was something growing in me that I just really loved this guy. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. It was more of a choice to love than a feeling, though. I can tell you that. When I was with him, I just felt content. I felt secure for some reason. I don't know. I just felt like I had found this person that I could connect with in some way. I don't know if it was romantic. Probably in my mind it was romantic, not in his. Was I desperate? No, I really was not desperate. Although I guess there was a little feeling of, I hope this works out. I hope I don't have to keep searching for a guy, because I was determined I was finding another husband. I like being married, and I was going to go after a person that was safe and interesting and intriguing and, yeah, a bit emotional. And he seemed like that kind of guy to me eventually. So, yeah. Okay, 4. Emotionally, did you get your needs satisfied? Originally, yes. I definitely did. I felt, not the connecting needs of being able to talk to him and feel his feelings and hear him express himself. No, that wasn't there. But the physical stuff, the intimacy was all there in the beginning. What I didn't know was his reasoning and motive behind being physical with me was not the same as mine. I was feeling this intense oxytocin drive of, oh, this is so wonderful and this feels so good and it's so good to be with somebody that loves me and cares about me and I can't wait to see him again. And him, it was just like, wow, there's something interesting about this chick. I better do this to her because if I don't, I'm going to lose her. That was pretty much it. What I didn't know was that he was autistic, and we didn't find that out till years later. All right. What was the intimacy aspect like? Were you happy with it, unhappy, delighted, disappointed, angry? I was thrilled with it at first, and when it didn't happen on the honeymoon night, I was angry and frustrated and thought something was wrong with me and disappointed and yeah, feeling trapped, feeling like, should I really stay in this relationship if I'm going to go without my needs met the whole rest of this relationship? How did the relationship end? Who ended it? Why? What were the feelings of each of you about its ending? It didn't end. We're still in it. But other relationships did end for similar reasons. And why did it end? Because I was tired of not having my needs met. I was tired of being frustrated and angry. And a lot of times I was very alone. And I felt like if I'm going to be alone anyway, why stay in a relationship with somebody? What was the point? In the cost benefit analysis, was what you were getting worth the price? No. In those past relationships, it wasn't. This relationship, it remains to be seen. There's still a lot of work that we need to do on our relationship, and we are doing the work. And that's what matters in this relationship. They also say to go back into your parenting relationships and ask yourself this. With your parents, who was the boss? Did one parent love the other more? What ways did each of your parents use to get what they wanted from each other and from you? Did you feel each parent loved you? Did one parent love you more? Did you love one parent more? Which parent made you feel good about yourself? Which parent made you feel bad about yourself? How did you try to get love, attention, emotional support? And how did you avoid the anger of each? I think they mean each parent. So let me answer these. Who was the boss? In my family, it seemed my mom was, to be honest with you. Did one parent love the other more? No. I think they both were pretty angry with each other most of the time. What ways did each of your parents use to get what they wanted from each other and from you? Threats, punishments, that kind of thing. Bribery, a lot of bribery. Did you feel each parent loved you? I felt like my stepdad loved me in the only way that he knew how. And my mom, I always felt loved by my mom. Did one parent love you more? I felt like my mom did. Did you love one parent more? Yeah, my mom. Which parent made you feel good about yourself? My mom when I was younger, not so much now, but my mom. Which parent made you feel bad about yourself? My stepdad. And now my mother makes me feel bad about myself sometimes. Well, not really makes me feel bad. I hate that term. I know nobody, that I believe nobody makes you feel anything. But the way they treat you can influence your own feelings about yourself. I'll say it that way. And who made me feel like I was inadequate, like I was a loser, like I was a wash up, like I couldn't do anything right, was my stepdad. How did I try to get love, attention, and emotional support? By being perfect, by doing everything the right way, the right time, by asking for his approval. Dad, did I do this right? Can I go out and play now? Having to ask permission to just be a child, pretty much. How did you avoid the anger of each? I had to sneak around, like physically, just try to stay out from under my dad's visual radar. My brother and I would like literally say, hey, the coast is clear. And we'd like, boom, through the room underneath where he couldn't see because his desk was up here. And we'd like crawl across the floor real quick where he didn't see us. We'd sneak up the stairs. Otherwise, it would be, where are you going? What are you doing? How long are you going to be? Who are you going to be with? What are you going to do then? And we just got tired of the interrogation. My dad was OCD and OCPD badly and paranoid schizophrenic. We didn't know it at the time, but he was. And it was not the kind of childhood you would really want to have as a child. Trust me. It was like being in a military camp and he was the enemy spying on us all the time, trying to catch us doing stuff wrong, trying to make sure we didn't run up the stairs before he gave us the interrogation. It was ridiculous. All right, so use these questions that I talked about. I know I went over them really fast, but use them to make yourself a list. Figure out your own childhood issues. Figure out your relationship with your parents, your relationships with other people, guys and women in your life. Ask yourself these questions to find out and explore as much as you can the earliest patterns that you had interacting with other people. If there are people you can talk to about your infant years, about being a baby, even better. Find out as much as you can about your past. Are you repeating early interactions? And is it making you feel that insecurity that's causing you to stay tied to somebody that's unhealthy? It's something really important to look at. Next time, we're going to be talking about valuableness and worthlessness. So stay tuned for that next video. It's still going to be another part of this particular one. I think we're on part 6. And I will see you on part 6, if that's what I'm on. B. Maybe it's part 5. No, it is part 6. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. God bless, and we'll see you then.